Billionaire woman challenges black maid's son to a game of chess, but he didn't know he was a genius. Victoria Ashford stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her Manhattan penthouse, surveying the city below like a queen overlooking her kingdom. At 45, she had built a tech empire worth $12 billion, crushing competitors with the same precision she applied to her weekly chess games with fellow billionaires. Her success had come at a cost: 3 failed marriages, estranged children, and a reputation for ruthless brilliance that kept even her closest associates at arm's length. The penthouse's silence was broken only by the soft footsteps of her housekeeper, Carmen Rodriguez, who had maintained the pristine space for 7 years. Victoria barely acknowledged Carmen's presence, viewing her as part of the elegant machinery that kept her life functioning smoothly. Today felt different, though Victoria couldn't identify why. Perhaps it was the merger falling through, or the board meeting where she'd been questioned for the first time in years. Her usual confidence felt brittle, like expensive crystal that might shatter at the wrong frequency. She had built her identity around intellectual superiority, using her strategic mind as both weapon and shield against a world that had underestimated her as a young woman in tech. The chess set in her study seemed to mock her, ivory pieces arranged in perfect formation, waiting for an opponent worthy of her attention. She had dominated every game for months, leaving her wealthy adversaries frustrated and defeated. Victory had become so routine it had lost its flavor. Carmen worked with quiet efficiency, her movements deliberate and respectful as she prepared the study for Victoria's afternoon appointments. She had learned to navigate the emotional minefield of her employer's moods, understanding that silence was safer than conversation. At 52, Carmen had raised 4 children while working multiple jobs, sacrificing her own dreams to ensure her family's survival. Her eldest son, Marcus, was home from his first semester at Columbia University on scholarship, achievement that filled her with pride she couldn't fully express. She had never mentioned his academic success to Victoria, knowing that personal information was unwelcome in their professional relationship. The invisible barrier between them had been carefully maintained for years. Victoria's attention was caught by an unusual sound, quiet laughter coming from the kitchen. She rarely heard such genuine joy in her sterile home, and curiosity compelled her to investigate. She found Carmen's son, Marcus, sitting at the kitchen island with a chessboard, playing against himself while reviewing what appeared to be advanced chess theory on his laptop. The boy, young man, was clearly brilliant, his dark eyes focused with intensity she recognized from her own mirror. He moved pieces with confident precision, muttering strategic considerations under his breath. Victoria felt something stir within her that she hadn't experienced in years: genuine surprise. Here was intellectual sophistication in a place she had never thought to look. Marcus looked up as Victoria entered the kitchen, his posture straightening with automatic respect drilled into him by his mother's careful instruction. At 19, he carried himself with quiet dignity that spoke of strength forged through struggle, though his deference to authority remained deeply ingrained. He had grown up understanding his place in spaces like this. Invisible, grateful, careful not to disturb the natural order that separated his world from hers. His chess studies were a private passion, pursued in stolen moments between part-time jobs and rigorous academic demands. He had learned the game from his grandfather, a janitor who had been secretly brilliant and had developed his skills through online platforms and library books. His talent had remained hidden, nurtured in shadows where it couldn't threaten anyone's assumptions. "You play chess," Victoria observed, her tone carrying the faint condescension of someone stating the obvious. She approached the board with the casual confidence of someone accustomed to being the smartest person in any room. The position Marcus had set up was complex, far more sophisticated than she had expected from someone she had barely noticed despite his presence in her home. Her initial surprise gave way to familiar arrogance as she assessed what she assumed would be an easy intellectual conquest. "I don't suppose you'd be interested in a real game?" she asked, her voice carrying the subtle mockery of someone offering charity. The question felt like a test, though neither of them yet understood what was truly being measured. Marcus hesitated, glancing toward the doorway where his mother might appear at any moment. He understood the dangerous territory he was entering, the space between deference and dignity that had claimed so many before him. His mother had taught him to be invisible in places like this, to perform his role without challenging the comfortable assumptions of those who employed them. Yet something in Victoria's challenge sparked a flame he had kept carefully banked. "I would be honored," he replied quietly, his voice carrying depths of meaning she couldn't yet fathom. He began resetting the board with movements that betrayed years of serious study, his fingers finding the pieces with the familiarity of a concert pianist approaching his instrument. Carmen appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of barely controlled panic as she witnessed the scene unfolding before her. She knew her son's capabilities, but she also understood the social dynamics at play. This was not a simple game. It was a collision of worlds that could have consequences far beyond the chessboard. Victoria's reputation for destroying opponents was well known, and Carmen feared what might happen if Marcus either lost humiliatingly or, worse, somehow won. She started to intervene, to protect both her son and their family's livelihood, but something in Marcus's expression stopped her. He had made his choice, and she recognized the quiet courage that had carried their family through so many challenges. The game would proceed, carrying with it the weight of assumptions, dignity, and the possibility of profound revelation. The first moves were conventional, each player probing the other's style and strategic preferences. Victoria employed her usual aggressive opening, designed to intimidate and overwhelm opponents who lacked her years of high-level competition. She had refined this approach through countless games with fellow billionaires and professional coaches, crafting a style that reflected her business philosophy: swift, ruthless, and psychologically devastating. Marcus responded with quiet precision, his moves revealing a deep understanding of positional play that surprised her. His development was patient, methodical, building toward long-term advantages rather than seeking immediate tactical gains. The contrast in their approaches became a metaphor for their different life experiences. Her privilege allowing for bold aggression, his circumstances requiring careful strategic thinking. As the middle game developed, Victoria's confidence began to waver. Marcus's pieces coordinated with an elegance that spoke of natural talent refined through serious study. He had sacrificed material early for positional advantages she was only beginning to recognize, his strategy unfolding like a carefully orchestrated symphony. Her usual psychological tactics, subtle intimidation, aggressive time management, dismissive commentary, seemed to bounce off his quiet concentration. He played with the focused intensity of someone who had learned to find beauty and meaning in intellectual pursuit, treating each move as part of a larger artistic vision. Victoria found herself genuinely challenged for the first time in months, her mind working harder than it had in recent memory. The revelation came gradually, like dawn breaking over a landscape she thought she knew. Marcus wasn't just competent, he was brilliant in ways that made her own abilities feel crude by comparison. His tactical vision extended far beyond hers, seeing combinations and possibilities that remained hidden from her analytical mind. She realized she was losing, not through luck or accident, but through being systematically outplayed by someone she had considered beneath her notice. The recognition was both humbling and terrifying, challenging fundamental assumptions about intelligence, worth, and the distribution of talent in society. Her worldview, built on the belief that success correlated with inherent superiority, began to crumble with each elegant move Marcus made. Carmen watched from the doorway, her emotions cycling between pride and terror as she witnessed her son's quiet dominance. She had always known Marcus was exceptional, but seeing him match wits with one of the most powerful women in the city filled her with fierce joy and deep concern. The game had become something larger than chess. It was a statement about human potential, about the talents that society overlooked, about the dignity that could not be purchased or inherited. Victoria's growing frustration was evident in her increasingly rapid moves, her usual composure cracking under the pressure of unexpected intellectual defeat. The kitchen had become an arena where two worlds collided, and the outcome would reshape everyone's understanding of worth and possibility. Victoria's king found itself in an impossible position, surrounded by Marcus's pieces in a configuration so elegant it resembled abstract art. She stared at the board for long minutes, her brilliant mind searching for escape routes that simply didn't exist. The checkmate was inevitable, approaching with the inexorable logic of mathematics and the beauty of perfect strategy. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her king, a gesture that would acknowledge defeat not just in chess, but in her fundamental understanding of the world. The young man sitting across from her had not just won a game. He had revealed the hollowness of her assumptions about intelligence, worth, and social hierarchy. "Checkmate," Marcus said softly, his voice carrying no triumph, only quiet dignity. He had learned early that victory, especially over those with power, required careful handling. The moment stretched between them, heavy with implications neither had fully anticipated when the game began. Victoria's reputation for intellectual dominance lay in ruins on the 64 squares between them, but something more profound had been revealed. Marcus had not just demonstrated superior chess skills. He had shown the grace that comes from understanding both victory and struggle, the wisdom that emerges from navigating a world that consistently underestimates your worth. The silence that followed was broken by Victoria's unexpected laughter, not the bitter sound of defeat, but something approaching wonder. "Where did you learn to play like that?" she asked, her voice stripped of its usual commanding tone. Marcus explained his grandfather's teaching, the library books, the online study, the countless hours of practice stolen from work and sleep. Each detail of his story highlighted the vast differences in their access to resources, yet somehow he had achieved mastery that exceeded hers. The conversation that followed revealed not just a chess prodigy, but a young man of remarkable intelligence who had been forced to develop his talents in shadows and silence. Carmen approached the table, her earlier fear replaced by protective pride as she witnessed the change in both participants. The game had transformed them all, Victoria confronting the limitations of her worldview, Marcus stepping into his own power, and Carmen seeing her son recognized for the brilliant individual she had always known him to be. The kitchen, which had been a workspace defined by service and hierarchy, had become a space of mutual recognition and respect. The chessboard sat between them like a bridge spanning worlds that had seemed forever separated by circumstances of birth and opportunity. Within hours, Victoria had made calls that would reshape Marcus's future. She contacted chess masters, arranged training sessions with grandmasters, and opened doors to competitive opportunities that had been previously unimaginable. But more importantly, she had begun to question the systems that had kept such talent hidden from view. Her foundation, previously focused on tech education for privileged students, pivoted to identifying and nurturing overlooked intellectual gifts in communities society typically ignored. Marcus became not just a beneficiary, but a partner in designing programs that would prevent other brilliant minds from languishing in obscurity. The transformation was swift and comprehensive, touching every aspect of how she viewed talent, potential, and responsibility. The chess community buzzed with excitement as videos of Marcus's games circulated online. His story became a powerful narrative about hidden genius and the importance of looking beyond surface assumptions about intelligence and worth. Tournament directors who had never heard his name suddenly competed to invite him to prestigious events. Chess masters who had dismissed him as just another amateur found themselves studying his games for insights. The young man who had been invisible in a billionaire's kitchen was now being discussed in chess clubs and academic circles around the world. His rise challenged comfortable assumptions about where brilliance could be found and nurtured. Victoria's personal transformation was equally dramatic. The woman who had built her identity around intellectual superiority discovered the profound satisfaction of recognizing and nurturing talent in others. Her relationship with Carmen evolved from employer-employee to something approaching friendship, built on mutual respect and shared pride in Marcus's achievements. She began to understand that true intelligence included the wisdom to recognize gifts wherever they appeared, regardless of social packaging. Her business practices changed as she implemented new hiring and promotion policies designed to identify overlooked talent within her own organization. Marcus's success opened doors for other young people from similar backgrounds, creating a pipeline of opportunity that had never existed before. His story became a catalyst for broader conversations about educational access, talent development, and the hidden costs of social assumptions. Chess academies began reaching out to community centers and public schools, searching for the next hidden prodigy. The game that had begun as a casual challenge had sparked a movement toward more inclusive recognition of human potential. The 64 squares of the chessboard had become a symbol of possibility, proving that brilliance exists everywhere, waiting only for the chance to be seen and celebrated. A year later, Marcus stood before the World Chess Championship, no longer the invisible son of a housekeeper, but a recognized grandmaster whose story had inspired a generation. His journey from kitchen table to world stage had been meteoric, but he carried himself with the same quiet dignity that had impressed Victoria during their first encounter. She sat in the audience, no longer the woman who had assumed intellectual superiority based on social position, but someone who had learned to see potential in places she had never thought to look. Their relationship had evolved into genuine mentorship and mutual respect, built on the foundation of that transformative game. The match itself was secondary to the larger story it represented. Marcus played with the same patient precision that had characterized his style from the beginning, his moves reflecting not just technical skill, but the wisdom that comes from understanding both struggle and triumph. His opponent, a traditional chess prodigy from an elite European academy, found himself outmaneuvered by strategies that emerged from a different kind of intelligence, one forged through necessity rather than privilege. The game became a metaphor for the broader changes occurring in competitive chess and society at large. Victoria's foundation had grown into a major force for educational equity, identifying and nurturing talent in communities that had been historically overlooked. Carmen had become a program coordinator, using her understanding of working families to help design support systems for gifted children from similar backgrounds. Together, they had created a network that ensured no brilliant mind would remain hidden simply because of economic circumstances or social position. The chess program had expanded into mathematics, science, and technology, creating pathways for exceptional students regardless of their family's financial situation. The legacy of that kitchen table game extended far beyond chess rankings or tournament victories. It had challenged fundamental assumptions about where intelligence could be found and how it should be nurtured. Marcus's story became a powerful reminder that human potential exists in every community, waiting only for recognition and opportunity. The billionaire who had once measured worth in dollars had learned to recognize the true wealth that lies in human capability and dignity. Their story continued to inspire, proving that the most profound victories occur not on competition boards, but in the moments when we choose to see each other's full humanity and potential. Marcus's victory transcended chess, becoming a catalyst for recognizing hidden brilliance in overlooked communities. Their story reminds us that extraordinary potential exists everywhere, waiting only for someone willing to see beyond social assumptions. In a world quick to judge worth by wealth, their encounter proved that true intelligence knows no economic boundaries. What hidden genius might we discover if we approached every person with the curiosity to truly see them?